Hello and welcome to your gentle hip strengthening practice. Today we'll move through a series of exercises and postures, some strengthening and some just sort of offering a gentle stretch that will leave you feeling certainly stronger and more aware of how your hips move, and also hopefully relieve any feelings of stiffness that you might experience in your hips. I have a block with me to practice, and I'm also practicing near a wall. We'll want that for one movement in particular. So once you're set up, join me lying on your back. I like to begin almost every asana practice by lying down in a comfortable resting position. For me today, that means I've extended my legs long, but it's also fine to have your knees bent, feet planted on the floor. You can rest your arms however is comfortable, and I invite you to just take a moment or two here to breathe in a calm, relaxed way, feeling your body, really settling into the space that you've created for yourself. On your next breath in, let's take a full body stretch together. And then as you exhale, hug your knees into your chest. And then if it feels good to rock side and side, you might do that, or move any other way that would work for you. Right now it feels really good for me, for my back, to rock a little bit here. And then I'm going to start by keeping my right knee hugged into my chest, and I'm going to straighten my right leg long on the floor. I can just rest comfortably, and then just start to gently move your right knee around any which way that would feel good into the hip. That might be hugging it into your torso, that might be rocking it side to side, or you might even draw circles with the knee. Good, and now I'm going to take my right knee into my left hand, so opposite hand to the knee. I'm going to reach my right arm out to the right. I'm bent at the elbow, but if you've got space, you could just extend it out long. And then guide your knee across your body for a twist, letting your shoulders, both shoulders stay on the floor. You might turn your head to the right, and let's take 2 breaths here. Gently unwind back to center. And we'll switch legs. You can straighten the right leg long, hug your left knee in, and just starting to move that knee around gently in a way that feels good for you. And then we'll come into our twist. So right hand to left knee, left arm reaching to the right. And then just guiding your knee any amount across your body towards the right. Maybe your left hip will lift off the ground, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Head might turn to the left. A couple more breaths here. Good, let's unwind and hug both knees in once again. And then we'll make our way to a seated position. So I'm just going to roll to one side and reposition myself on my back. So I'm sitting perched up on my sits bones. My feet are nice and wide. I have the mat distance apart, knees bent. Move my block out of the way, and I'm going to place my hands behind me. So I'm leaning back a bit into my hands. They're supporting some of my weight, and my spine is pretty neutral. Just focusing on moving the left leg to start. Keeping the right leg still, I'm going to allow the left knee, to drop in towards the right leg, as you can see. That takes it into internal hip rotation. And then I'm going to let it gently drop out like it's leaning wide, the knees pointing to the left. That's external rotation. You're doing your best to keep your right leg still, and the left leg is going to sway side to side. And then if you want to make this more challenging, you could hover your bum off the floor, and then as you're doing this, your pelvis is going to rock all around, but it requires some real core strength to stabilize the middle of your body and your pelvis. So you can do that if that feels fun. And then I'm going to set my hips back down on the floor and just switch legs, so this time letting the right knee drop in as far as feels comfortable, and then go wide as far as feels comfortable. Breath is calm and relaxed. Just a little warm up again for the hips, noticing how this feels. You can hover your hips off the floor if you would like to. Good, and then you can set your hips back down and we'll find our table pose. So coming up to all fours. Now if you're someone who likes to have additional padding under your wrists or under your knees, certainly if you have like a blanket nearby or a thin cushion, you could also just double fold your mat under like this, which can provide some additional support for any of your joints. So certainly take the time that you need to set that up. Place your wrists roughly below your shoulders, knees below hips, and then when you're ready, you can start to move through cat-cow with your breath. Inhaling to lift through the tail, lift through the heart, and then exhaling to round the back, tuck the tail, and bow the head. And then moving at your own pace, breathing into that delicious extension of the spine and flexion of the spine. Now, the next time that you inhale, we're going to add extension of the right hip to the extension of the spine. So put another way, as you're going into your cow pose, you're also going to reach your right leg back, lifting it up. As you exhale, we're going to flex the spine and flex the right hip, drawing your knee towards your nose. Moving with your breath, inhaling to extend through the whole body, exhaling to curl in. 2 more like that. As you exhale, the right knee can come down, and we'll just do that on the second side. Inhaling to arch through the back for your cow pose and lift the left leg back, and then exhaling to hug everything in. Last inhale, and then as you exhale, we're coming back to table. Now, in that exercise, we combined hip extension and spinal extension with hip flexion and spinal flexion, so depending on which part of the breath you were talking about. But this time, we're going to try to isolate the hips, and so we're going to put a block on about the mid-back, so a little bit higher than the upper back. And the purpose of the block is to help you feel where your back is in space, and to try to not move the low back and not round through the back. We're going to try to keep the torso really neutral and only move from the legs. It also helps me to think of engaging my core, which for me feels like a slight feeling of drawing the belly in, but also like the sides of my waist are cinching in, like there's a corset around my waist that draws in. Once you have more or less that kind of feeling, we'll slowly reach the right leg back. So as you can see, in order for me to not use my spine, I can't lift my leg nearly as high. And then I'm going to draw my knee in towards my belly, and I'm not bowing the head. My neck is just an extension of my spine. Spine is neutral. And I'm just going to take the right leg back, reaching the leg back, and pulling it forward. And I'm really feeling the effort in my hips. On your next exhale, you can just set the right knee down, and we'll do this on the left side. So finding that core support, so we're not going to let the low back collapse or round out, and then slowly extending left leg back any amount that you can, and then pulling it in. It's very normal for your range of motion here in the hips for it to seem like it's a lot less than what you could do when we were bringing the cat-cow movement into the spine, when we were pairing that with this movement. That's totally normal. And then we'll come back to table. Good, we can take the block off from the back. And if you didn't have a block, I mean, it's fine. You could put like a book or even like a Kleenex box on there, even a cushion, just something to give you a sense, like a sensory experience of feeling your back. Now next, we're going to once again use the block, and we're going to use the wall. Again, if you don't have a block, you need sort of a firm object for this, so a cushion wouldn't do, but a Kleenex box wouldn't be bad, or like a book, or even just like a cardboard box, a shoe box. What we're going to do is we're going to find our table pose. I'm right close to the wall though. I'm close enough that I can come into table, but I can place my block so that it's between my right hip and the wall. So, I don't know if you can see that, but the block won't fall because I'm gently pressing into the block with my hip and it's being held in place by the wall. Now, we're going to be working on the left hip. So we don't want to drop the block, and we're going to keep the spine neutral, just like we did before. And we're going to gently draw the left knee in towards the belly. We're going to slowly take it out. We're doing hip circles. So it's like you're drawing a circle with your knee without letting the block drop. And your left leg stays in a bent knee position like your heel is hugging towards your left bum cheek. Let's circle the other direction. And then set that knee down. That might feel like a lot of work. It certainly is. Let's switch sides. So I've got my block. I'm going to reposition myself so that the block can be between my left hip and the wall. And then I'm in my normal table. So I've got like knees more or less below hips, wrists below shoulders. And then it's the right hip we're going to work. Torso staying nice and neutral, spine neutral. Gently draw the right knee in towards your belly. Take it out to the right. Extend it to the back behind you. And then pull it through. Nice and slow. And we'll circle the other direction. Good. And then you can set your block to the side. All right, now from our table position, let's step the right foot between the hands and come into a low lunge where we're going to be deliberate about our stance. So I've got my front knee more or less above my front ankle. And then when I lift up through my torso, I also want my back hip roughly above my back knee as best as I can find. Then I'm going to place my hands on my hips. Feel that they're square to the front of my mat. And I'm just going to start to gently tilt the pelvis forward and back. Or put another way, I'm going to come into an anterior pelvic tilt, which is like when your bum's sticking out. And a posterior pelvic tilt, where I'm feeling what active hip extension feels like. And where it's like that tucking the tailbone feeling that we talk about a lot in yoga. You can sync this with your breath, inhaling to tilt the pelvis forward, exhaling to tilt it back. And first of all, you're just curious, can you get any movement here at all? It's okay if you can't. This is something that can come with time. The other thing you're curious about is how much movement and how this feels in the back. As well, if you can feel any sensation when you tilt the pelvis back, can you feel your glutes working and sensation happening from the front of the hip down to the front of the thigh? Good, now let's relax that effort. So come back to what feels like neutral for you. And now let's bring our attention to the front foot. And I want you to lift the heel off the floor. See how that affects your balance. And then can you hover the whole front foot off the floor, even just for a second? So let's think about, imagine that you could draw both sides of the pelvis in, like the hips hugging into the pelvis and that cinching of the core in around the waist. So everything's hugging in, and then you're just going to hover a foot off the floor. And we want to get a good wobble going. So if you want to be a bit more adventurous with this, you can kind of move your foot around because we want to strengthen the stabilizer muscles of the hips. And they get strengthened when we almost fall, right? Like when we almost fall and we have to catch ourselves. Certainly it's fine to do this near a wall, like I am. That wall has sort of a second purpose, not just using it for those hip circles. And certainly even if you just lift the foot for a second and tap it down, this is just an exploration. All right, really nice. The foot can come down. We'll bring the hands to the floor, and we're just going to switch sides. So I've got my left foot set forward, front knee roughly above front ankle, and then as I lift the torso to an upright position, My back hip is more or less over my back knee. And let's just find those pelvic tilts. Here on the second side is worth noticing if this feels easier, right? If the pelvis moves easier on this side, if this feels at all different. Still tilting the pelvis forward and back with the breath. And then just relax that effort. Imagine both sides of the hips hugging in, so everything drawing in, waist cinching in as well. Lift the front heel. Lift the whole front foot, even just for a second. And the arms can do whatever. So the arms can sort of splay out. You can go wide, airplane arms, whatever works for you. This is supposed to look a little silly. Don't worry about it. We just want to get these muscles fired up, trying to stabilize this whole situation. All right, we can put that front foot down, bring hands to the floor, and step back. Now, friends, we're going to come onto our bellies from here. So first, just lying however is comfortable. I like to make a pillow with my hands and turn my head to rest my cheek on my hands. You can certainly arrange your arms and position your head however feels best to take a few moments of rest. And as well as to take a moment to breathe deeply into your low back. Let's take 4 big breaths into the low back. As you inhale, you want to feel like your low back is expanding in the same way that the belly does when we take big breaths and rely on our backs. As you exhale, feel the softening of the front of the body into the floor and the softening of the low back. 3 more. All right, friends, for our next pose, our half frog, I'm going to come up onto my forearms, and then I'm going to bend my left knee and sort of take it out to the side. It's like I'm sliding my knee across the floor and dragging it as far forward as is comfortable. For me, my knee can come sort of out, with my thigh bone and my torso make almost like a 90-degree angle. That might not work in your body, to see how you do. And if you want a blanket or a cushion under that knee, that's no problem. And then your shin bone just is sort of flush with the long edge of your mat. So you also have more or less a 90-degree angle where your knee is, between your thigh bone and your shin. And then it's up to you whether you want to stay lifted on your forearms like this, or if you want to let your chest come down to the floor and rest your head on your hands. We're just going to rest here. This is an opportunity to soften and to breathe and to just notice this position and let gravity do the work of inviting you deeper into the stretch. Now everything about your body position can stay the same, but we're going to add a little bit of strengthening in hip internal rotation. So as you inhale, I want you to lift your left foot any amount off the floor that you can comfortably. You might feel that effort right on the outside of your left hip. And as you exhale, you're just going to let it come back down to the floor. Moving with your breath, inhaling to lift it up, exhaling to lower down. Do a few more times at your own pace. The next time that you exhale and your foot comes down, you can extend the left leg long, and we will switch sides. I'm going to reposition myself so that you can see me at this side. But for you guys, you can just bend your right knee and sort of slide it forward. Slide it so that it approaches your hip. And then you've got your shin bone, which is parallel to the long edge of your mat. You can stay lifted on your forearms, or you can let your chest lower down and let your head rest in your hands. And we're just going to breathe here. To add that strengthening element, we'll now inhale to lift the right foot any amount off the floor. Exhale to let it float back down to the floor. And then moving with your breath at your own pace, finding a few more repetitions. The next time that you lower your foot down, you can extend the right leg back next to the left, and we're just going to roll over onto our backs. You'll want to have your block handy, that's why I just reached for it, so you can have that near you. And we'll first find constructive rest pose, which is where we have the knees bent, the feet planted, a comfortable distance from your seat, and about hip distance apart from each other. We'll find our supported bridge pose. So I have a block to use as my support, but if you had like a big cushion or like a couch cushion, something with a bit of firmness or a bolster, that would also work. Or another kind of firm prop. So I'm pressing into my feet, lifting my hips, and then I'm setting my hips down so that my sacrum, a little below my low back, is supported by the support, by the prop. And then my arms are a little away from my body, palms face up. Now, you might stay just with the legs like this, feet hip distance, knees hip distance. You could walk your feet wider than hip distance and let the knees lean against each other. That can be nice. Or it's also fine, if you enjoy this version, to completely straighten the legs long. So to do that, I'm just going to shift my back a little bit. Whatever version of this you're in should feel really good. So if something starts to twinge, especially in the low back, you want to come to a different variation. And then we're just going to take about 10 slow breaths here. Enjoying this little stretch for the front of the body, especially the fronts of the hips. To ease out of this position, we'll bend the knees, walk the feet in, lift the hips, remove the block, and then I always like to open my arms wide and just let the knees do a little windshield wipering action side to side. Next, I'm going to come back to constructive rest pose and prepare for reclined pigeon. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. So you'll see your legs make like a figure four. It's not where we're hugging the thighs together. Now your right foot should be actively flexed. So it's not asleep and it's not in a pointed foot position. The toes are pulling back to the knee. Now this, you might already feel the stretch in the hips, and this might be enough. If you can comfortably clasp your hands behind your left thigh and draw your legs in without your shoulders and your head lifting off the floor, you could do that. Or if you're like me and you kind of feel like you're in between, like grabbing for your legs wouldn't be comfortable, but you want a little bit more, then you could take your block and place it below your left foot. And that just helps, so the block helps your legs to be pushed a little closer towards you, propped closer to you, without needing to grab your legs. So either version is perfect. You could also use a strap if you had one handy to loop around your legs if you enjoy that version. And we'll just take a few breaths here. Let's switch sides. Uncross the legs, back to constructive rest. Then you can cross the left ankle over your right knee, flex the left foot, and decide whether you want your right foot just on the floor. Decide if you want to prop your legs up by placing the right foot on a block or some other kind of height. Or if you want to clasp your hands behind your right thigh and pull your legs towards you, that's also totally fine. Arms can rest however is comfortable. If they're not holding onto the legs, I'm just breathing here. Let's uncross the legs. If you were on that block, you could move it to the side. And let's inhale now to find another full body stretch. Big reach of the arms and legs. And then as you exhale, hug your knees into your chest. Find any little movements here that would feel good. Like if it feels good to rock side to side, definitely do that. If you'd rather just be in stillness, that's no problem as well. I'm going to take a moment to hug my nose towards my knees. And then when you're ready, you can set yourself up for a Shavasana in whatever way would feel really good. So if you have a bolster, you could put it under your knees. You could be in constructive rest with the knees bent, feet planted. Arms can rest wherever on the body or next to the body. Or if you like to extend your legs long, that is fine too. I invite you to stay in Shavasana at least a couple minutes. Even 5 to 10 would be really great for a practice of this length. And so I will leave you to your stillness, leave you to your rest to integrate this practice. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, for watching this video, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.